Hello, Brave Masters. Welcome back to another episode of the Brave Entrepreneur Podcast. I am your host, Jena Rodriguez, and I can't wait to share with you our guest here. You can see him. Michael, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And just so in case you're new to me, I am a brand business and brave strategist, and I just absolutely adore helping entrepreneurs know how to get their brave on inside their business as an entrepreneur, as well as get clear in their brand and, have a kick-ass brand and business. So that's who I am. And if you find value in this, I just want to really encourage you to share this video, this audio, whatever it is that you're hearing us or seeing us through, and give it to someone that is struggling. Give it to someone that might find some value in the conversation. And so I really appreciate it. And on another note, would love to hear your own feedback. I know Michael and I would benefit from that. We can do things on the next show or in our lives or in our businesses to continue to support people like yourself. So make sure you give us that feedback when the show's over. And so without further ado, welcome aboard, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm really excited to get to know you and to share your story with everyone. So first and foremost, if you can just tell everybody exactly what you do and what your amazing talent is and how you help people.
Well, how I help people now is I show outbound sales teams how to overcome call reluctance so that they can set more appointments, learn how to ask the right engagement questions, and then be able to close more business, right? Yeah. So that's the key thing that I do. So the company I have now, salesbuzz.com, I guess technically you can call it a sales training company, but I do all the training myself. It's my system. It's all live. It's all live online, but the key focus is really showing the people that have to use the phone, whether they're setting face-to-face appointments for themselves or for somebody else, or if they handle the entire process over the phone. I don't care how long you've been doing it. If you're not having success, your confidence can really wane.
Yeah, for sure.
Call reluctance can set in. If you're an entrepreneur and you really want to grow your business from the ground up, one of the key things you're going to have to do, you can have the best mousetrap out there, but if you don't know how to close the deals, or you don't know how to start a conversation with somebody or get on the phone, it can be really hard to go ahead and grow that business to the level you want. So I show people I have a blueprint, a step-by-step process that if they follow it, they can be themselves, follow their own personality, but if they follow this process, they're going to start closing a lot more deals because they're going to have a lot more conversations that are going to lead to closes.
I love that. And I think this conversation, and I was just telling you before the show, it's like I've struggled with sales. It's something I wasn't natural at it. That's not my background. I came from more marketing. I was a controller. I'm good with people, but that's not the enrollment of conversation we're talking about here. So I think this, what you do is just really powerful because sales is a must in business. I mean, if you don't have a sales conversation and create a transaction, you don't have sales and revenue and for cash flow. So, I think some of my clients as well, they struggle with this. And so it's like helping them build their confidence and build, and it's like have wins and yet be able to deal with rejection and deal with stop taking it personal and being able to be really, strategic in it. Have you always had this skill or is this something you've had to practice?
Well, so the thing is this, I used to be really bad at it, but I always had the will to keep going, right? I mean, I just want to figure something out. And the one thing about sales is this, I think what really attracted me to it is that the better there's no cap on earnings, right? So like most people that want to be an entrepreneur, they want to work for themselves, but there's also that underlying thing. There's no cap on the earnings. The better you get at it, the more money you can make. And so whether you're working for yourself and you're building your own business, or if you are going to work for somebody else, and if you're in I've been a straight commission sales rep for 25 years. I've built and sold companies, but I've always been, if you're an entrepreneur, you're a straight commission sales rep. That's what people totally. I don't care. Listen, even real estate agents are a straight commission sales rep, right? But if you're going to build your own business, you're a straight commission sales rep because there's no guaranteed salary that's going to come in. So to answer your question, though, I mean, it wasn't like, okay, I hit the golden path right out of the gate. I struggled as a sales rep.
Yeah.
And one of my biggest passions, the reason why I really love helping people is because just about all the sales books and stuff that's out there. It's just all repackaged garbage, just in a different way. And some of the stuff that I used to read way back in the day, or the workshops I would go to, or things of that nature, they were more rah-rah sessions and less substance. Or they would give bad practices or bad sales techniques. Or the flip side was this: it was good information, but never put into the process or system. So you could get a really good sales question that's, that you need to learn how to ask. But if you use that really good sales question at the wrong time, or say it in the wrong way, or ask it in the wrong way, it doesn't work. And then so what ends up happening is, if you're an entrepreneur or you're a sales rep and you get some advice from somebody that really knows what they're doing, and they say, well, this question is what you should ask, and then you use it the next time, you say, okay, and a couple times it works, but then all of a sudden it doesn't, and you go, well, it doesn't work anymore. Sales training doesn't work. Sales techniques doesn't work. And then you start having that self-doubt and all. And what it really was is, you had the right question, but you use it at the wrong time. So it's really important. I literally map out the sales process, and this is why it doesn't matter. Anything that I sold, it could be different verticals, it could be different industries. But once I figured out the process, and I mastered each step, as long as I executed each step properly, I was always in the top 10%. I was always up there, and it didn't matter what I was selling. I used the same process in different verticals or industries, and it was successful.
Yeah. And I think it's important that people get that. I mean, sales is something to practice, just like you said. It's like, I didn't start out great, and it's a listening, it's like, you have to be able to listen for the appropriateness of what to be a sales conversation, and to be most effective. So I love that you teach this. It's, I think, highly needed, and it's one of those things that people just struggle with. So yay. So let's talk about what, I guess, for the nature of this call, is really what's been in building your business. First of all, when did you start your the salesbuzz.com or what have you?
SalesBuzz started probably really settled on this about 6 to 12 months after I sold my first business.
Okay.
So if we go back a little bit, first of all, let's just do that. I'll give you the quick.
Tell me the story, like the lineup.
So the real story is that when I was a kid, I grew up wanting to be a rock star. I was, total guitar, did the little touring thing, in my early, late teens, early 20s. Matter of fact, right before I met my wife, I was on a short list to try to be Ozzy Osbourne's next guitar player. So we're going back, a while ago, right? And so I was hoping to get that gig, but if I just felt like it got to a point, even though I got the rejection letter, I still have it to this day from him that he mailed me. But, I felt like at that point, as passionate as I was for it, I felt like God was leading me in a little bit of a different direction. And the thing about the sales was, I wanted to live like a rock star, but I didn't want the 9-to-5 thing. That just doesn't work. I did it. What's funny is, like, people that don't want the 9-to-5, then they end up working 24 hours a day instead. But it's for them. So it's I go from having one boss to having all my clients as bosses, right? But
answering to somebody, right?
Exactly. But that was okay. It was something I was passionate about, and things of that nature. So what ended up happening is I got into sales because I realized that the better I was at sales, the more cash I could make. See, I never went to college. I barely graduated high school. I grew up in a broken home with a violent stepfather and things of that nature. It was just nasty. And having somebody that's like, 6'4" when you're 13 over you saying you're never going to amount to anything. I really had like two choices. Do I go down that road where most people would say, okay, I'm just always going to be this, I'm always going to be, broke and all this other stuff and living from food stamps, or am I going to get pissed off and want to prove everybody wrong? And so I went the other direction. So even when I was, doing my craft, I wanted to have my own band and things of that nature, I would practice like there's no tomorrow on my guitar. I would beat on my craft. But when I got into sales, I took that same energy and that determination, and I ate up every book. I mean, that's why I said I would read every book, every seminar. I would pay out of my own pocket. I would always want to learn to get better. Where the majority of the salespeople around me, they would want the company to pay for them to go to the course or to buy their own books or whatever. And I'm like, I'm not waiting.
Yeah.
And so I would study it, and I would just put all my energy in that. So try to speed the story up for you. As being really good as a straight commission sales rep, one day I had this idea. I was married at the time now, just newly married, and I had this idea for a business. And this was back in the days of dial-up, and it had to do with internet marketing and things of that nature.
Yep.
I barely knew how to turn a computer on. but I could see that if you could get small businesses at top rankings in the organic section of like Google and Yahoo and all the other searches were there at the time, I knew that small businesses would pay for that kind of service. And I gravitated towards it, and I studied it, and I figured out how to do it. And then I started, even though I had a full-time job, I started doing it on the side. So then I was like closing deals for the company I was with, and then trying to build my first company on the side. And then it got to a point where my first company was taking off that, I couldn't work full-time anymore. So I left, I did it full-time. Again, very scary. Yeah. Right. Because, I have, my wife is like, because we already have one child, we got another one on the way, and you're leaving a very good job, you're making good money, you got insurance cover, and you're going to go to nothing. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to be fine. And, and it wasn't,
that's what you got to say.
Yeah. And well, the thing is this, people say failure is an option. Failure is an option. And that's why I know it's an option. And it scares the hell out of me. So what I do is I take that fear of failure, that knowing that is really real. I mean, people could say, hey, failure's not an option, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. And that's fine. But when you realize that there really is an edge to that cliff, and you don't want to go down it, I'm going to fight even harder to make sure it never happens. So I use it as more as a rocket fuel, if you will.
The necessity. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I put that energy into it, and then I made that first company work within 5 years. It was, we're skipping all kinds of stuff, but I made all the mistakes that a first-time company owner, business owner, entrepreneur would make. But I survived all my mistakes, which is a phrase that one of my friends, who's a very big mentor for me and a CEO of a large corporation, he says, "I just survived all my mistakes." He says, "You're doing the same."
Yeah, it's good.
And then within 5 years later, I went ahead and after starting that business, somebody made me a 7-figure offer I couldn't refuse. And so, coming from my background that I just shared with you, I went from, when I was a kid, food stamps, to somebody's cutting me a 7-figure cash.
Right.
I took it.
Yeah.
And now that I had that cash, I took some time off, but then I got bored.
Right.
First of all, it was 1.2
million. The true sign of an entrepreneur.
Right. Well, first of all, it was, I was 37. I was a month before my 37th birthday. It was 1.2 million bucks, and that was a lot of money. But I couldn't live off that. Now that my lifestyle was even before that, because I was earning good money.
Yeah.
But also I did
last forever if you just spend it.
Well, it could have if I would have known about Dave Ramsey ahead of time before that and learned how to do. I might have, but it would not have been, my kids wouldn't be going to prep schools and these colleges and all that stuff, right? But it goes back to, I was bored. And that was the other thing too. And I was like, what do I want to do? And I had a couple other business ideas. And the one that I kept coming back to, I was like, you know what? There's a ton of people out there in the sales world who are struggling. I mean, that phone is feeling like a 25-pound weight to them, and they don't want to pick it up anymore because they're tired of the rejection. They're tired of gatekeepers shutting them down. They're tired of nobody calling them back on voicemails. They're tired of living paycheck to paycheck and living with the fear of, are they going to be fired next quarter? And I know I've lived that, and I know exactly what I changed differently, so much so that I had my own confidence that somebody that had no experience starting a company and no college education, in the middle of a dot-com bomb, if you remember that crash back then, in the middle of that, I still had so much confidence in my sales ability that I could start a company, an internet marketing company, a dot-com company, in the middle of those crashing and still be successful. And that's how powerful that sales process that I have is. And so I was like, I need to teach this to people.
Yeah.
That was my next thing. So that's how we got into Sales Buzz. And so I've been doing this for about 11 years now, just about 11 years.
Yeah. And I think that's what's important. I was just talking to someone earlier today, right before, pretty close to this call. And it was this conversation about the different iterations you're going to go through in your business entrepreneur journey. It's like you just get started in the first idea, and then you grow that idea. And then it's like, then another idea shows up. And if it's the right decision at the right time, then you make that choice. And it's all about decision. And it all comes back to what's interesting is our childhood's similar. I moved out at 14 because I was done with the abusive boyfriend, right? And I could have chose to stay in, be with the drugs, be with the alcohol, be with all that. Or I'm going to do it different, and I'm going to break the cycle. And that's been my mission, right? That's been my survival necessity, I guess, this whole time. And from that, it's like you just end up doing what's next. You get your brave on and you do what's next, sometimes out of survival mode, sometimes out of necessity. But I always find that in order to be brave, you do have to find some type of necessity, or it's not going to pull you forward. You will stop at the cliff and you'll turn around.
You got to find what you got to be passionate about it. You're right. Yeah.
You got to care.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I just saw that, you know, it's like, you know, how your business, you grew one business, you got the opportunity to sell it for a really great amount of money, whether that was right or wrong, you did it. And then it led you to what's next. It's like every stepping stone is a stepping stone.
That's right.
And if we just embrace the journey of it, and I call it the evolution of a brave master, right? There's going to be a journey that you're going to look back on and go, I survived my mistakes. I'm still standing. I'm still stepping over cliffs, you know, and making the moves that I got to make. And it's like, who knows where we'll be in the next 12 years. Right.
You know what's funny about that is so my youngest daughter, so I have one daughter who goes and she's in college, and my other one plays hockey up in Minnesota. She goes to a prep school, and you know, her dream is to make the Olympics one day. And one of the things we always talk about is the process, the journey is actually the reward.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, getting up. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you know, getting up at 5:30 every morning, like she used to do down here in Florida, to train every day before school. You know, to earn an opportunity to go to the school she goes now, and now it's the same thing. That's you know, the academics and all that stuff. You know, just like my other daughter, you know, with her trying to make it into acting and the modeling and all she does. You know, I always remind them it's the journey really is the reward, because before you know it, you're going to be at the end, whether you made your goal or not. Right. But that's not, I mean, when you really look back, the business opportunity is the same way. When you're building your business, you have to realize, sure, we want the cash at the end of the rainbow to make our lives a little bit easier. Right. I get that.
Sure.
But when you really look at it, it's the journey's a reward as well.
Yeah. You know, and I love that for sure, because I think people need to be reminded. I struggled with that at the beginning, because it's like my drive is like to get to the goal. I mean, I'm goal driven. Right. And yet now it's this sense of being present in the moment and not constantly living in the future. And, you know,
or in the past.
Or in the past. Totally. Exactly. Right. I don't want to go back there, actually. I'm good. But so thank you for sharing that story and that, you know, kind of under the hood, because we all have a perspective, but it's so interesting, this show after 3 years, you know, and it's like this common thread of, you know, how people face their fears, how entrepreneurs, you know, step into the cliff or lean in versus like run the other direction. And everybody that I've talked to has some form of necessity inside of getting to where they are trying to go. Because if you don't, right, if you don't have the passion, or if you don't have this need to take care of your family in a different way than we did, you know, in what we had growing up, or whatever it is, it's like short circuits what we're trying to do. And you know, so I just see that journey and that path that happens with everybody. And so what would you say, I guess I want to know, like specifically, what does brave mean to you?
Brave means doing what scares you. Yeah. Right. But you know, so let me back up. Let me tell you how all of this got started. Even, you know, the whole kind of story I told you before. I was actually working as a straight commission sales rep for an organization, and the first year out of the gate, I was rookie of the year. And we're talking Boiler Room. You ever see the movie Boiler Room? If you haven't, you have to rent it. It's a fabulous sales. Right.
It sounds familiar.
Right. So basically, it's like, you know, it's almost even very reminiscent to The Wolf of Wall Street, right? You got a bunch of people in a room picking up the phone. We weren't selling stocks, but the point was this: is it was 80 people in this room, and I'm one of the small fish in there, and it's straight commission, and I win rookie of the year the first year, and then I'm number 4 in the company the next year, and then somewhere along the way I lost my mojo. Like, I wasn't, there's some management changes, and that just wasn't gelling. And the thing is this: is that you know, so my numbers started to decline, because if you don't believe in what you're selling, you know, that's a deal breaker, right? It's time to go on to the next chapter. Right. So if you don't believe in what you're selling, it's time for the next chapter. But the problem was this: is that my friend was, and even though I know not to do this, my friend was the conference circle. And I was really, you know, I was afraid to leave the organization. Plus, it didn't help that this particular company happened to be mentally abusive, saying, where are you going to go to make this kind of money? You don't have a college education. Right. So they would put that fear in you because they didn't want to lose me, but I wasn't happy. But it was like very controlling. And I was just like, I one day I just had it and I walked out.
Yeah.
And I have a wife, I have a daughter, and we just put money down on a brand new house. Her and I grew up like in housing stuff. You know what I mean? And so for us to have a brand new, we just put money down on a brand new house, and this is before cell phones or everything. But I ended up telling her, and I was
pager, right?
I had to tell her, and I was like, I couldn't text it. Like, hey, guess what?
Like to get the pager out, right?
No. It was face to face stuff, and I'm like, I just quit. And she's like, you need to make this up and go fix this right away. And I understand where she's coming from, but
yeah, she had fear. Right.
She had fear, right? But the thing is this is I had to listen to my gut. It was telling me for the longest time, and finally the dam broke and I couldn't take it anymore. But this is what I did. And I've done this before in the past as well with other scenarios, but I went to a bookstore. Before I would try to get back with the company, I went to this bookstore not knowing what to look for.
Yeah.
But when I get into a situation that I don't know, or I don't know how to handle, or something's bothering me, I'm not sure what it is, I go to the bookstore and I go to the self-help section. And I used to be embarrassed to do that too.
I love this. That's really good.
Right. Because I would be like, if I'm looking, remember bookstores, right? I mean, everything's on an iPad now, but you go to a bookstore and they have.
Remember those?
Yeah. And so I would go there and just not knowing what to look for, but I figured if something jumped out at me and I gravitated, that's what I would do. And I always go off of this premise that no matter what problem we're having, somebody else in the world already had it and they learned how to solve it. And so they wrote about it or whatever, right?
They got a book about it. Yeah,
exactly. So I just went there, and wouldn't you know it, the number one book at the time, it was right on the display there in the self-help section, was Who Moved My Cheese? And so it talked about dealing with change. I'm like, well, I'm having panic attacks with the change I just caused an hour ago, by leaving quitting my company. I read that book in 45 minutes. And within 45 minutes, I had a totally different perspective on, instead of the fear of the negatives and all the dangers and not being able to pay the bills, about what the opportunity lies ahead. And within a few days, I had a brand new job in a much better scenario, making way more money than I was before, just like that. But it was a mental thing. It was always. It was. I realized that fear is a paper tiger. And if you just face it, a lot of things are going to go on. Now, that doesn't mean that. Now, remember that cliff of failure where you fall. That's still there, right? I mean, I could have just sat back, read that book, and go, okay, I'll wait for the job offers to come in. I had to realize, well, what are some of my weaknesses? One of my weaknesses, believe it or not, was interviews. I was horrible at it. I was always afraid because I had that. I didn't go to college. I didn't have that background. But damn, I'm going to work like a dog, and I'm going to close deals for you. Well, I didn't have that kind of confidence standard. So there was this thing out, it was brand new at the time, monster.com.
Yes.
They would tell you what some of the questions you might get in an interview. So I would study them. When I got the interview, I drove there the day before at the same time, just so I know what the traffic would be like. So I knew exactly how long it would take me to get there. And I made sure I was there even, 15 minutes early. One of the things I tell my sales students when they join the class, one of them is, if you're on time, you're already 15 minutes late, right? So I made sure that I knew how to get there, and I was there early, and I aced it, got the job, and here's the great thing: that job led to another job, which led me to another job, where I got the idea for my first company. And then a mentor there, that when he realized I wanted to do that, he helped me with it, launch, and he gave me some advice. And that led me to my first 7-figure payout. If I don't tell that one company to go pound sand right in the beginning, I get rid of it. I'm sorry, this is a clean episode. Right? Is that okay? Can I say that? You might have to edit that part. Right? But
we gotta believe it. Yeah.
If I didn't tell them to take a hike, we're not here today.
Yeah.
You and we're not having this conversation. And so it all goes back to, you have to have that passion, and listen, there's also a lot of times I did work, especially outbound cold calling, that's where God needed me at that time. And even if I didn't want it, but there was things for me to learn how to do. If I wasn't there for years doing that, I wouldn't be such a pro at it where I could shortcut the learning curve for everybody else now.
That's right.
Right. So there are going to be times where you realize, you know what, this is not what I want to do forever, but this is where I need to be. Because this is the other thing I teach too. If you realize that maybe you're a sales rep and you don't want to be at this company forever, you want to start your own business, or you want to do something else, while you're working, while you're still there, make sure you give it 100%. Because if you're in sales, you're just not responsible for your own family.
Right.
everybody else in that company's you're responsible for everybody else's family as well that works there,
Yeah,
because you're the one that's bringing in the cash,
that's
right?
right.
That pays the janitor, the marketing, everything else. So make sure you give it your all, learn what you can, and then when the time is right, listen to that voice inside, and then take the leap.
Yeah. I love that because and a couple things that you said. Number one, I definitely think it's a mind game. I mean,
Right.
Brave is all about the mindset, meaning the mind has to be managed at any given moment. So, it's like the moment we go into panic, the moment we quit our jobs and we're like, what did I just do? And
Right.
I got to go admit it to my wife or husband or something. It's like you've got to be able to take that moment and do something with it. And what I saw in your story is that you go collect information,
Mm.
right? It's like I do the same thing. I mean, I just didn't look at it that way. So when my confidence and my calm comes from when I can not only like manage my mind and then get additional information from, like you said, people that have been there, done that before. It's like we're not actually alone in this. And you're not, it's like we're not the only ones that have had a moment of panic. And so the fact that you walk into bookstores and just kind of see what comes up, I love that. I think we could still do that. Maybe we can just like point at our Kindle or something, but but it's reach out for support. It's reach out for a mentor. It's reach out for a book, or it's reach out for a quote or something that just has a momentary flip of the space that you're in, so that you can see something different. And I think that's all that it really comes down to, is being able to see 360 degrees of possibility.
Yeah.
And ask yourself what's possible versus what's not possible, or what did I just do, or oh my God, what if, and it's like there's two different what ifs. There's what if, what if this doesn't work and I fail and the world ends and my, everything bad, or what if this does work? What if I actually am in the right place in the right moment, and it's the perfect place for me to go to the next step. And so I think what you just shared was really powerful. It's just like really being able to manage the more this, because then things show up,
Right.
and then you end up in the right job, you end up in the right lesson. Because, and I think you're right. It's like give 100%, give 110% wherever you are. People are watching, first of all. They're always watching.
Right.
And then you're always going to be learning what you can then teach someone else. Because if you master it, then you can accelerate it for someone else. And I think that you and me both, like that's what I think I do, is I short circuit you don't have to spend 12 years figuring this out. You can, figure it out in 2 or whatever.
Well, that's a good point that you bring up too, because one of the things too is you have to know, this is the tricky part. And I don't think there's there's not a magic formula for it. It's more of a gut thing.
Yeah.
But you have to know when to change you can't keep forcing a square into a round hole. Right. So you might have a vision of, you want this company to work, but if what you're doing is not working, you just keep doing it longer. But when do you know to pull the plug on it? Some people say, well, I'm just going to keep doing it because I believe in it. But you have to fine tune that engine. Like if you got a Ferrari and you're trying to run around a track and it's sputtering, well, sure, maybe don't get a new car, but you got to change the spark plug, or maybe you try a different spark plug, or you got to try something else. And what I find a lot of times with people who are trying to start their own business and get it off the ground is they either quit too soon. And that was big for me, because my first company took off like right out of the gate, and Sales Buzz was a little bit longer of a flight path. But I remember a long time ago, I read somewhere that most entrepreneurs, they quit right before their big break, right? So you got to keep pushing, but then on the same side, that doesn't mean you stick with the same game plan. You still have to keep making adaptation. You got to learn how to pivot. But then there's other times where, you know what, you got to keep doing what you're doing and just push through it.
That's right.
That's a tough thing.
It's like, so funny. You're a musician. My husband's a bass guitar player. So
nice.
I totally get that. And he is, that's what he does for a living. And, awesome. And so, it's tuning the guitar, right? Like you don't throw the guitar out.
That's right.
Necessarily. And not every song might be perfect, but you've got to like tune it up. And, and it is, I think it comes from experience. I think it comes from like just confidence and be willing to go a little bit extra mile. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but I do believe that sometimes people quit just 5 minutes before the miracle. Right. And I have that, I've said this before, I've seen this cartoon where the guy's chipping away in the mine it's like it's some kind of drawing or something, that newspaper article or something, and he's chipping away, and the picture shows the diamonds right on the other side of like one more chip, and he turns around.
Right.
He never gets to the gold or to the diamonds or whatever. And yeah, so it's like, just stay the course, hold the vision, but don't always get attached to how it has to show up.
Exactly. And sometimes the vision will change a little bit too. Because watch this, is that absolutely. when I first started Sales Buzz, my idea was this. First of all, I invested a ton of money. I was going to do everything all on demand. And so I pre-recorded the videos, and I had it all LMS system. And my idea was, people are just going to log in. They're going to watch it on their own. I'm going to go fishing in the Keys every day, right?
Yeah, right.
Marketing, and it just wasn't taking off. And the content was great, but that was my vision, to have it all on demand, everything go. Yeah. Then I realized, well, I had a meeting with one of my mentors that I reached out, that helped me in my first company. He's like, well, what about doing it live? And he gave me the examples, like, listen, you can buy a CD, well, now Spotify, but you can buy a CD for $10 and listen to your favorite band, but people are going to pay $200-$300 to see you live. And so they got me on that thinking. And then what I changed, I started doing the workshops live instead of just being on demand. But it wasn't because they wanted to see me live. What the difference was this: it's my audience, salespeople, and even entrepreneurs. I mean, listen, we have the attention span of a goldfish. I mean, anything longer than an hour, we're just going to lose focus, right? And so having, watching something on demand where you can get to it and just, all this, it wasn't working. But the second I took those same workshops and I started doing them live in these certain time, 1 hour a week, you got to be there. They're engaging. You can ask questions. As soon as I do it, all of a sudden the business took off. Same material, same content. But
people like that. Yeah. And that's the pivot in versus like throw it out with the bathwater.
Exactly. Exactly.
I love it. I just really appreciate this conversation, because there's a lot of nuggets in there, and just, the awareness of these things happen, and just how you've kind of positioned it, I think will help a lot of people. So
awesome.
Thank you. And so in closing, number one, how do they connect with you? What's the best way to connect?
If you need help improving your sales skills or your team's sales skills, salesbuzz.com, our website. There's even a free on-demand a course on there. They can sign up for it, and
awesome.
It is on demand, but it gives them, the difference is it gives them a sneak peek of what the style of the content is, and there's a lot of takeaways, and they can try it. Right, the sales skills I teach them, after 20 minutes they can get on the phone and try it. They'll see that it works, and then if they like, they can just always reach out to us through the website, and then sign up for our live classes if they're interested. If it would help them. Yep. Yeah. Or LinkedIn's another great way to connect with me as well.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's how we connected. So
yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you. We'll make sure your site is in the show notes as well. And the final question I always like to ask some of my guests is, if this was, I know, get ready. It's on the spot. So if this was your last interview, if this was the last conversation, obviously, to the world, we're hitting over 70 countries here right now. So if this was the last chance to share one thing that you want people to take away with, what would be that message?
Love your family is the first thing that comes to my mind. No. Right. That's and I know that's not really business related, but when you're asking me that question, I like to. This is why I like doing live interviews, right? Without on screen, because I'll just say what comes to my mind. All right, top of the mind, and that's you gotta love your family. Just love your family.
I love it. Family, friends, the people, right? It's about the people. All this other stuff is just
just noise.
That change, right?
That's right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michael, for being here. This has been really powerful. I knew it'd be great, but I just think this has been one of the best conversations. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for saying so. All right. We'll see you guys. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
And everyone watching, make sure you give us feedback and leave us reviews or whatever, comes to mind. And until next time, let's go get our brave on. See you soon.
See you guys.
Bye.